So everybody had lunch. I had my coffee. I'm trying to stay awake too. But I believe I have to be awake. I'm on next. So welcome to my talk. This is a credit card walks into a bar, which is a talk about credit card forms in e-commerce. This talk isn't particularly mobile, but I think you'll see that all of these things, you've probably seen them somewhere in mobile too. When I came up with this talk, before I go into that, I'm a developer advocate at Braintree. So Braintree, for those of you who don't know, we handle credit cards online for companies like these. You know, Uber. You guys have Uber here? Yeah, right? Yeah. Slack. Anybody here on Slack? I love Slack. Cool. So yeah, they all use us to process payments. I'm not going to go into that much further beyond that. So yeah, credit card walks into a bar. My initial idea was like, I'm just going to find some jokes online that fit into this topic. There's not that many out there. So I had to, we had to write our own. So actually, it's talk about credit cards and e-commerce, but really, it's about credit card forms in e-commerce. And it's not really about credit card forms in e-commerce. It's more just a series of bad jokes by me. So it's going to be, oh God. So let's start with the first joke, okay? Just to warm you all up. You're just in time for the jokes. Yes, okay. So credit card walks into a bar. He says to the bartender, I've been having a hard time meeting people. The bartender says, wait, aren't you supposed to be good at generating interest? Okay. Whew, thank you. I love you, Warsaw. Whew, that's the first one out of the way. Okay. So I have a cat. And Andy, who's here, he knows that I like to put my cat in my slides. He does have a bit of a special condition. This is kind of, I remember this from, like, it doesn't quite, this is what he tends to do. He's a bit special. Actually, he thinks like he's in charge of everything, right? No, really, the problem that he has is like he has a kidney condition. So he can only eat really expensive food. So that I can only order from specific places. But people always want to use his photos everywhere they go. So I don't know if any of you use AdBlock? Yeah? So a couple of years ago, the guy, especially kids want to take his picture. A couple of years ago, the guy from AdBlock, he did a cat block for April Fools, which was like it would replace all the ads with cat pictures. And on the website, he actually used this picture of a slightly familiar looking cat. Turned out he just grabbed one of my pictures of a Flickr and used that as the advertising. So my cat is the cat block cat. And I don't like people just like, the AdBlock guy doesn't like, ads. I don't like people stealing my pictures. So I wrote an application that, this is not actually the application. This is kind of what version 1 looked like. I don't dare to share you what it actually looked like because I'm too afraid in front of all of you designers. But of course, I made a new version, which is, in Bootstrap. Yeah, everything these days is in Bootstrap. Twitter Bootstrap made it pretty. Of course, made it mobile optimized. Yeah, it was good. And it charges people for use of his photos. Especially kids. It's really easy with Braintree. We just throw a couple of these lines of code in. This is basically 5 lines of JavaScript, and you get a nice credit card form like that. And I know what you're thinking. I'm an asshole. I'm charging pictures of my cat to people. No, really, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pay for his kidney surgery. I promise. All kidding aside, let's do another joke. Credit card form walks into a bar. The bartender says, why do you keep coming in here day after day? The credit card form looks at him miserably and says, I'm just looking for some validation. Okay, cool. Yeah, I do a lot of credit card form integrations with Braintree, but you don't quite realize how shit things are until you start looking at just the average e-commerce website. This one is brilliant. We've all seen credit card forms like this, where you're like, why are you asking me this much? So many things in here. This is actually from a website called Line Standing, where you can kind of pay somebody to stand in line at the Apple Store for you for a couple of hours in advance. Anybody ever stood in line for an iPhone? No? For anything other Apple related? I stood in line for Leopard by accident. It was a queue of like 5 people. So yeah, this talk is really just about things you shouldn't do. But I'm not really an expert. Instead, I've just, there's a lot of articles out there. This is actually a website that just shows you like, drop-off rates at certain e-commerce websites, which are pretty low. As you can see, it's all like between like 60 to 80% drop-off, which means of the 100% of people who come to your shop or come to your credit card form, only about 20 to 30% actually fill in the damn thing and continue. And this includes like IBM and some other big companies. I'm not really an expert on this kind of stuff, so this is actually the URL for that site. So it's more of a things I think you shouldn't do. Mainly just going off looking at bad forms. So the first one is like adding a CAPTCHA. Completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. There's an actual CAPTCHA. And you see it on credit card forms and you're like, why would anybody do that, right? Why would you put a CAPTCHA on there? Like, you can verify my credit card number already. Like, you can just either charge me or don't charge me. Like, it will either be declined or will be accepted. Why do you need to know if I'm a human? And then it gets like complicated. Like, what does this even say? Oh, that's a nice one too. And all you really want to say is like, listen up, man. I'm not a unicorn. I'm not a robot. Like, I just want to pay. I just want to pay. And I'm officially hereby going to rename CAPTCHAs. I'm going to rename the definition to be completely automated pain to customers who have all kinds of money. Right? Because you're basically telling people like, well, you want to pay me money, but I'm not sure if I'm going to accept it from you. Please prove that you're not a unicorn first. Okay, so that's number one. What I find even worse is like asking users to register before they've actually purchased anything. This is it's actually from a Dutch website that runs in a couple of countries. It's like one of these like daily deal kind of websites, like, like Groupon and stuff like that. And like a lot of these things are like impulse buys, right? You look at it and you'll go, I want this, I don't want it. And then you press on the button and then they present you with this form to kind of fill in. And you're like, that's a lot of information I need to fill in just to buy this thing. And that's not even the payment thing. Like, that's just before you're even hitting the payment page. Then you're hitting the actual payment. Like, this is supposed to be an impulse buy. This is not how this is supposed to work, right? Woot.com is another one. There's like a US website. It's like a similar kind of daily deal thing. And they actually have a really bad one where it's like they require you to sign up. And it's a bit hard to see here, but it says, you'll get the Woot Daily Digest email full of deals and dumb jokes and the occasional hilarious Woot newsletter. So not only are they they want you to sign up, they're also going to send you spam. Etsy, same problem. Although they do have a Facebook sign up, and then once you go through it, they still want you to fill in your email address and password. It's even better, right? Websites that ask you for your email address before you've even looked at it. They're like, there's this thing called cookies, so you know whether or not I've been here before. Some websites do it a bit better. This is Walmart in the US. They have this very simple thing here on the right where it just says continue as guest. So you can just continue as a guest. And basically what they do is they make like a temporary account under the hood for you that you can use as a developer. And this is the same thing you guys can do in your apps, right? Just continue with a temporary account, and only if you kind of reach the endpoint do you then turn that into a real password. Another website, similar kind of thing, continue as a guest. Home Depot does a similar thing. They just ask you for an email address just so they can kind of tie it to you. Because that's really all you need, right? Is like an email address, and then you can send somebody a password. Same thing. So let's switch to another joke. Okay. An American Express walks into a bar in Moscow. Bartender says, "Sorry, mate, you aren't allowed in here without a visa." See? Okay. So talking about American Express and Visa. It's really weird how many forms out there don't quite, validate your credit card type. Which actually is pretty trivial to do. It's ridiculously trivial to do. Because this is what a credit card is, right? It's a certain amount of numbers, and then you have the major industry identifier, and then you've got some identifier numbers, and then you have your account number and a checksum at the end. And you're like, oh, well, that's a lot of stuff. No, you just go to Wikipedia and find the stuff. So these are the, the main industry identifiers, which you shouldn't really care about. The important stuff is this stuff. And this is just blatantly copied from Wikipedia. You could write a script that does this, right? It just takes the first few digits, like anything starting with a 34 and a 37, it's an American Express. And still, so many websites you have to... This is Dell.com. This is a big website. And it's still asking you, like, what kind of car type do you have? You don't need to know that. You know that from the number I'm giving you. It's easy. Another website, same thing. This one is quite funny. Like, it looks like they're going to detect it, but then they don't really. You need to press on that. So it's kind of like a hidden radio button kind of thing going on. You still need to press on it. This one's cool. Like, this looks like it's one of those like things you need to press on, but you still need to drop from the drop down. This uses both, which is also very nice. This one is amazing. This is from Victoria's Secret. My cat was trying to order something. The credit card number, like, you can type in the credit card number and it will automatically detect which credit card type you're using. But then you can still click on the icon and change it. So you can fill in a Visa number and then select Amex. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's so easy to do right? Like, there's a whole bunch of libraries out there. Now this talk is focused on web mainly, but there's similar libraries for mobile out there. This is like a jQuery credit card validator. You just type it in, it will tell you whether or not it's right. It will automatically detect the card type. Credit card JS, same thing. This one is actually like kind of skeuomorphic. Of course, I love Braintree, obviously, and we do a similar thing where you just type in like 41 and it will tell you it's a Visa. You type it 37, it tells you it's American Express, etc. It's not hard. Now the next thing I hate is this bit, right? It's like the CVV. Anybody know here what a CVV is? It's the little 3 digits on the back of your credit card, or at the front of your credit card. Like, this is actually from Dell.com. Dell's brilliant, by the way, for this stuff. It's like they have like an entire like A4 page trying to explain to you where to find this little, this verification number. Like, it's like, well, Amex requirements, it's over there. Visa, it's over there. MasterCard somewhere else. Discover has it somewhere else. Blah blah blah. And this is like from another website. This one is brilliant. This one, like, these guys had designers on their team. You can see it because they were like, we're gonna have these little loops going on, little loops. But then the loops aren't actually where the things are. Like on an Amex, that loop is supposed to be there. Not like, it doesn't actually even help you try to explain where the CVVs are on the card. When we get into things like this, like entire bits of text on like the little question mark that you need to hover on. This one's pretty good too. Same thing. I love this one. CVV is a 3 or 4 digit code embossed or imprinted. What's the fucking difference between embossed or imprinted? I don't know. Like, I don't care. Like, just tell me where the thing is. And this is like, it goes into like, printed on your car, required as an added safeguard for online. So it's trying to explain to you why it's even asking you for this. Now, the interesting thing is actually when you start doing some research into this is like, these things are actually called differently everywhere. Like MasterCard calls them CVC2, Visa calls them CVV2, etc. And on most cards they're on the back, except for on Amex they're on the front, and in MasterCard they're kind of in the middle on the back, and so there's all these differences. There's actually some cool things out there. This is again for web. It's just a little thing where you see the card, and as you fill this in, it will just fill in nicely the card. Again, it will detect whether or not you're on Visa or not. And then, like, I'm now selected into the month-year thing, and it will kind of tell you nicely what the month-year format is. And then as you go to CVC, it will nicely flip over and just show you where those are. This is, again, a very skeuomorphic kind of example. Like this one is just purely like a card like that. You type it in, it will detect the format, you type your name, and then it tells you to just click and go tell you on the other side. And basically it's matching exactly where it should be on your card, where the details are. So, it's another one I didn't have time for to add in, but my slides will be online and you can kind of follow the links around. Of course on Braintree you did the same thing. And actually one thing that we did is like, you'll notice like when you type the card, it will actually say CVV for Visa, but if you have a MasterCard, it will actually say CID. We didn't decide to go as skeuomorphic as other people have done, because there's kind of a design trend against that, but in general, people can find the damn thing anyway. So, the other thing that annoys me, and like, which is really amazing when you start looking around, is people who don't format the card, the expiry date, the same way as it is on my card. Like if you have a credit card, you know it's 9 out of 10 times it's like 2 digits, right? The month number and the year number. And still, people like websites ask you for like the date in text, and I don't understand this one, because you would think like, okay, this is more like they've gone through the trouble to still go for the short version of it. Like they could have written January, February, etc. instead of they going for Jan, Feb, March, April. Like that's one character more than 01, 02, 03, 04. Like it's not a lot more verbal or anything like that. And this is actually from a couple of different websites. Like some of them will, like those are the numbers, that's the month. But then we have the ones that start with the number and also have the month in it. And we have the ones that just have the month with the number in it. There's absolutely no consistency around that. I love this one too. Like this one over here, it's a bit hard to see. It doesn't even tell you what it's asking for. It's just like, expires. And a security code, which is not CVV or CID or anything like that. So yeah. Up for another joke? Yeah? Are we ready? Okay. Credit card form walks into a bar. He tries to pick somebody up at the bar. They turn him down. Credit card form looks at the bartender and says, well, that's awkward. Normally I'm the one who declines. Okay, tough crowd. Okay. Okay, so turns out it's actually really easy to validate a card, right? It's called the Lun algorithm, and any website that doesn't do it is an idiot. Just to explain to you how it works. Like you can, if I type in my credit card number, this is just an example credit card number. This is not my credit card number. Do not try to charge this. It won't work. It really isn't my credit card number. Don't try. So the way it works is like you take the number, you reverse it, then you increase every second number. So like a 1 becomes a 2, and if it like goes above 10, so like the 5 over there, you basically subtract 9. So if it goes above 9, so it's modulo 9, yeah? And then you just add all the numbers together. So that block is like 14, 6, etc. It comes down to 50. If the number is divisible by 10, it's a valid number. Pretty straightforward, right? We can all write this code for this, right? Well, the developers among us. Just get your developer to do it. Now the way that works is like realistic, like you only have that first bit, that's just the kind of like we said, that's your Visa, your MasterCard, your bank, etc. And that's your account number, and then there's an extra digit here at the end, that's just a checksum. That's what makes sure that it's always divisible by 10, right? And still, it's amazing how many forms online don't actually check this. So my favorite like fake credit card number is like a 4 and, what is it, 15 ones? Yeah? So I changed it there, made it 4 and 15 twos, and I left everything empty, and I submitted the form. And it tells me everything is wrong. It tells me the last name is wrong, first name's wrong, but it doesn't tell me the credit card is actually is actually wrong. That's amazing. And then this one says like, please enter your credit card number without any spaces or dashes. Like, why would you even allow somebody to type it then? Like, that's not too hard to implement either. Or, you know, allow people to implement and just strip it out. Like, strip the spaces out. I prefer to type my credit card with kind of the spaces in between because it's the only way I know I've typed in the right number. This one's from Amazon. Amazon actually is interesting. They do validate the number, but they don't validate it until you actually have filled in everything. So you fill in the name, you fill in the credit card number. It doesn't, an invalid credit card number, it doesn't do anything. You fill in the first bit of the expiration date, the second bit of the expiration date. If that's wrong, then boom, it goes, your credit card number is wrong. Stripe, same thing. They don't do anything until you try to donate. Then it actually tells you it's wrong. Like we just took the approach of just checking it in line. So the moment you type 4 and what is it, 14 once, it'll be fine. You type the 2 after it, boom, just shows you a red line. But what's funnier even is like the amount of websites that don't even limit you the amount of numbers you can fill into the credit card form field. So like I said, it's pretty straightforward. Like most of us have a 16-digit MasterCard or a Visa. Amex is like 15 digits. There's some 13-digit Visas. I've never seen one, but apparently some people have one. And this is actually Google Wallet. Google Wallet they do a lot of things very right. Like they automatically detect like the Visa number and stuff like the fact that you have a Visa or a MasterCard, etc. They kind of have like the month and days right. They kind of automatically show little icons telling you where the CVV is. All of that stuff they do very nicely. But then you go in and you go and fill in a credit card number. So you type in like, okay, so far so good. Go a bit further. Okay, this is a valid number. We add some more ones. And some more ones. It will just allow you to fill it in. It makes absolutely no sense. So yeah, I don't know why they do that. Like they've gone through all that trouble and they just forgot to do that. So the next thing I hate is like when you don't remember me, right? So like I was just saying, like I just ordered my Raspberry Pi this morning, the Raspberry Pi 2, and I went to this website to order it, and they asked me for my address, and then my billing address, and then they asked me for my credit card address, and then they asked me for the delivery address 3 times. It's the same address. It's just they didn't remember the address any moment, which got really annoying. With the Braintree integration, you can just, tie somebody to a customer ID. You save the customer ID in your database or in your app. Next time you show the form, you just tell it to load it for that customer ID, and that will be present there. And somebody can just change and add more payment methods to that and add PayPal into it and other methods into that. And it's pretty straightforward and it just works. You don't need to ask somebody constantly for the credit card details. Once you've asked it, you can keep it. Now, of course, there's a flip side to that, which is remembering too much. 2014, we saw a couple of minor leaks. Home Depot lost 56 million credit cards. JP Morgan Chase, who are a bank, lost 76 million. This is Staples. They lost 1.6 million, just lying around. Trust me when I say like that's expensive. It's a couple of $100 of a penalty fee for each one of those. So if you do have 56 million and you have a couple hundred for each, you're getting close to a few billion. Yeah. It's like even if you're like a small app developer, if you have a couple of thousand credit cards on file, that gets expensive. So I think anybody hearing the security talk that we had earlier, like I forgot the name of the guy who was sitting to my right. He was saying like, really think about what you're saving. Like generally, like think about the data you're collecting and do you really want to be collecting it? Now with credit cards, we've solved this ages ago. Tokenization. So tokenization is where we, instead of sending the credit card to your server, to your app, etc., the credit card goes somewhere else, gets turned into something temporary or something semi-temporary, a token, and the token gets sent to your server, and that token is only valid with your API credentials and only valid on your server, which means that even if it gets stolen, it's not the user's credit card that gets stolen, it's your token that gets stolen. we might all know about it, like Apple Pay does something like that. But actually, within the Braintree API, we do exactly this, both for Apple Pay and credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, etc., and PayPal and Bitcoin. So we do this kind of implementation for everything, where you just type in anything like PayPal credentials. They never hit your server. They just go to us. We turn it into a token for you. That token goes to you, and you can use that to actually process the credit cards or PayPal or Bitcoin. Again, and that's what that just looks like. So although you can actually show this user their details over and over again, you're not actually touching any of their data. Okay, so another thing that I hate is this thing, and this thing really confuses me. A clear reset button. Why would I ever go through all this trouble of filling in your entire form to then at the bottom hit the clear button? It makes absolutely no sense. Why would I not just reload the page? Or I don't know, take a shovel to the head? Because I've just filled all of that stuff in and then you want me to hit the clear button. There's some really great examples, like I love this one. Because not only do they have a reset button, they also have a CAPTCHA, yes, which we already said is a horrible design choice. But then, like, they've put the reset button on the right. I don't know how you guys are, but in generally, I find that like the continue tends to be on the right-hand corner. So you fill all this in, you fill it in, and that reset, shit. I can tell you I'd be gone by that moment. Another one I hate is like not keeping the labels visible. So this is like actually on apple.com. Seriously, all this stuff is actually online right now. Okay, so shipping address. I've started typing something here. Wait, what are they asking here? I don't remember anymore. Like, there was a label in there at some point, but because I started typing, it's no longer there. And now I have no idea what they actually want me to type. You think it's street address, but then this line says street address. So what does that line say? Company name? Person name? Street address line 1? But that would mean this would have to say, whatever. It's just a bad design choice, right? That kind of stuff. And there's actually quite a few websites now that do this little tiny trick where they, you know, the moment you start typing, so it will look something like this, and the moment you start typing in there, the label would just move above the form and above the input field and actually appear. I've seen this on mobile, I've seen this on web. And it's a really nice design pattern that just shows people like, okay, you know, I know that I've made this form look really pretty for you, but I also care about you still knowing what you're trying to fill in. And actually the expiration date, like, our form doesn't say like what the format is that we're looking for. First of all, because we don't quite care. Like, you can fill it in about 10 different formats and we'll just detect it for you. But the other thing is the moment you type it in here, the label will go above and nicely say mm/YY. So the moment you start typing it in, you'll get the info you need. So I think this is the last joke. Oh, no. Somebody went, no. Okay, credit card form walks into a bar. A bartender says, "You're new to this joint, aren't you?" The credit card form looks at him and says, "Yeah, I just discovered it." Discover card is not that popular here. That's an American joke for you. Okay, so most of this stuff comes from, I have to give credit where credit is due, from bad donation forms.tumblr.com. Like, it's an amazing resource of just horrible, horrible forms. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to take any questions. Also, thank you on behalf of my cat. And I hope you enjoyed the jokes. Any questions? Any other jokes? Anybody got one?
I wouldn't say a joke, but I need to ask, because yeah, your presentation have a credit card in its title.
Yes.
I need to ask, because as for me, it's like you are a seller, I'm a buyer, and the credit by payment looks a bit like I'm giving you my wallet and say, take as much as you want because I trust you. I give you all the details. It's up to you what you did with that. So the question is, if in your company, are you thinking about other payment methods that won't push me to use this plastic piece of numbers provide them, and that's
the problem with the question is like every time you give your credit card, you basically have to run the risk that you have to take the gamble that the company you're dealing with is a credible company that isn't doing it the stupid way. Like there was even a company like there's this company called Lush. I think you might have it here too. They sell really fancy soaps. Sorry, they a couple of years ago they're a pretty well established company, and it turns out they were completely mistreating their credit card data online, and they had a massive leak and they lost a whole bunch of stuff. So even if you think a company is credible, stuff disappears. Now the thing is like, how do you solve that? Now one of the ways of doing that is through like the principle of an online wallet, like PayPal. The problem really is that people prefer to pay differently everywhere they go. Some people want to pay with credit cards. Like Americans want to pay with credit cards. They just want to pay with credit cards. They don't want to pay with anything else. They're pretty straightforward. They just want to pay with credit cards because that's what they love. Like in the Netherlands, almost nobody has a credit card. Like in Germany, I think the number of people with a credit card is like 10%, right? I don't know how it is here. I think quite a few people here do have a credit card.
Do have, but we rather not use it in online form, except buying online tickets.
Exactly. So the solution really is something like PayPal, a wallet, an online wallet, so that you can kind of pay the way you want to pay. You only authenticate the user access to your wallet, right? And you can revoke that, and it's one-off. And even if these details are lost, it's still tied to a token.
But it's still a proxy for a credit card at the end, in most cases.
Not really. Like on PayPal, we prefer you actually to just tie your bank account to it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's cheaper for you, it's cheaper for us, it's cheaper for everybody. But the thing is, people want to pay differently everywhere. So that's why with the Braintree integration that we have, like we allow you as a merchant to charge people in what's now 5 different ways. We could do credit card for you, we can do PayPal for you, Bitcoin, Apple Pay, and which is in trial in Germany, is bank transfer. So paying with SEPA, which is the single European payment something. Yeah. So those are the options that you have, and really what we're working towards is like a solution that just scales across the different needs in different countries. Because I can tell you right here, almost nobody wants to pay with credit cards. But in the US and in Australia, everybody wants to pay with a credit card. Canada, same thing. And it's like, if you want to have a business that can sell worldwide, you want a worldwide solution, not one that only sells in one place. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, thanks for a great talk. My question is, you mentioned that in Germany there is this thing for transfers, right?
Yes.
For transferring, and it's actually very, very popular in Poland as well.
Yeah.
And first of all, I wonder why, but I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer that. But I was wondering if you have any like global data. Is it getting more popular, or just particular countries where it is popular, or?
So the reason I understand why, and this is the same thing, like I'm Dutch, so I know in the Netherlands credit cards are not very popular either, just like in Germany. And from what I can understand, it goes all the way back to World War II. So it's the fact that after World War II, Germany got into such like a massive debt that kind of the approach they had to like their economy ever since is like very much a debit economy. It's nobody ever goes into red, realistically, right? Where in the US, I can guarantee you, in the US, the way people live is on credit. Everybody has a credit card, and everybody has a credit rating, and everybody like you can borrow more if you have a good credit rating, which means are you paying off your credit card bills every month, then you can borrow more money. In Germany and in the Netherlands, very different. I know in the Netherlands, like similar kind of penetration statistics for like credit cards, and the majority of the people who have a credit card don't even use it for purchases. They use it for emergencies, travel, things like that. And I think that's the same here. And it all comes from that different mindset on how we spend money, whether or not we spend on debit or whether or not we spend on credit. So yeah, that's why you need, when you want to charge people, you need a global solution that caters towards these different kind of needs, that people want to pay differently. Like I said, so at the moment the SEPA solution is in beta in Germany exclusively, but yeah, the goal is to roll it out across Europe. There's one over there. I can't see anything. Like I can see, some Twilio guy over there.
Can you tell something about the expiration date, and is it also part of the validation process to check that, or?
So one of the things I find interesting, like I'm a developer, I'm not a finance guy, and one of the things that's interesting to understand with this kind of like validation of a credit card is like there's a couple of different ways to validate. You can't just send a credit card and a CVV to an API endpoint and say, is this valid? That's not how it works, right? That's not how things work. Realistically, what you do is you try to charge a card. And on a lot of these APIs, you can do what is called a $0 charge. So you try to charge for no amount. And that will either get accepted or declined. And then sometimes you can send extra information along, and you can tell the API endpoint, you can say like, you know, I want to send the CVV along. And by the way, please, when you are doing the processing, please validate the CVV. Please validate the postcode. Please validate the name. You can do all of these things and try to validate them. But in the end, it's a trade-off for you, because every time you do a validation, anybody here married? Anybody here female and married? Right? If you get married, you might change your name. Right? Which one is on your credit card? So you go to a website, you fill in your name. I know there's people who have like middle names that have names that with dashes, without dashes. Like if you are going to be validating my name, you run the chance of hitting a certain amount of false negatives, where you get a decline, even though this is indeed the person with that credit card, etc. So when you validate a credit card, you really need to start deciding, like, do you want to validate this credit card and to what level? Like if I'm on an online digital magazine subscription, it's like, screw it, I don't need to validate your name. If it charges, I'll send you the digital magazine. If it doesn't charge, I don't send you the magazine. If I get a charge back, what did it cost me? 10 bytes, right? Like, it cost me nothing. If you're Uber, on the other hand, Uber is one of our clients. What they do every time you get into a taxi with Uber is they will send a charge against a $0 charge against your car details. Even if they've done that already before, they'll just do a charge against your car details again. So if you have like Amex, you can almost directly see in the Amex website panel, you can see like $0 like charge pending. Because then at some point they'll turn that into an actual transaction. But that's because they really want to make sure that if you get into that taxi, that they can charge you when you get out of the taxi, right? Because they have a different risk model. Because if you get out of the taxi and then they try to charge you and they can't charge you, then the cost is on them, of course. So yes, the CVV is part of like your validation process, but as a merchant, you totally decide whether or not you want to do that or not. The other thing is with us, you can check is like postcode, name, CVV, expiration date.
Hi.
I think you wanted more jokes or not?
Yes, I do want more jokes. But this is not asking for a joke.
Okay.
Actually, maybe it's a bit off topic also, but can you explain me what happened when the WikiLeaks incident happened, that at some point the United States government didn't allow you to donate to WikiLeaks over your credit cards or something similar like that? Can a government put pressure on you guys to not accept payments?
Oh, that's before I joined. I don't quite know. I definitely know there are very strict restrictions that we need to comply with, especially because in certain countries we are a bank. Like in Europe, we are a bank. Therefore, we need to, and if you have a bank license, you need to work very strict within the guidelines of what's allowed in the country. So I honestly wouldn't be able to answer what exactly happened there, but yes, we are very much limited to what governments allow us to do. Yeah. Sorry, if you want, I can find you an actual answer as to what happened there, but I don't know.
Actually, I didn't know. I don't know either.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I knew. It's a good question.
Okay, so related to the previous one about validation, there is this thing called 3D Secure and whatnot, where you get redirected to Visa's page and then you have to enter another password and things like that. So do you think it's actually better for consumers or worse or more secure?
It's 3D Secure is a funny one. Everybody know what 3D Secure is? It's like the little, like where you get redirected to your bank, even if you fill in credit card details. We have support for that. It's an optional thing for us that as a merchant you have to opt into. It's again, it's one of these things where as a merchant, like it's another layer of verification that you want. So it says with us as a merchant, it's up to you to decide whether or not you need that verification. Anecdotal evidence from merchants who I've heard trying to use it is it increases the drop-off rate massively. So beside it being more secure or not, I think that's a non sequitur. Like it's all about whether or not, if the drop-off rate, you always need to kind of balance the drop-off rate to fraud. Like you can get quite a bit of, you can pay for quite a bit of fraud if your drop-off rate is a lot lower, right? You can just pay for it. You just need to build it as a risk model into your own business. That's how far my knowledge goes about 3D Secure.
I seem to get this all the time. Like practically everything I do is I get the 3D Secure. So.
Yeah, it's certain processors. It's mandatory, right? So they make it mandatory. We don't.
Question from very user perspective about declines. Is it really like that when your payment is declined, then the answer is just no? Because on 99% of websites, the answer is just we can't charge your credit card without any explanation what could happen.
It depends on. It's generally on the API side. So there's a couple of players involved here. So we're a gateway, a payment gateway. And we talk to what are called processors under the hood, and it's actually the processors that will tell us whether or not a card is declined or not. Realistically, what happens is like, there's a couple of things. Like I had a while ago, I was trying to buy a Pebble watch, and I just couldn't buy it because they were using Stripe, and for some reason the processor that Stripe used had completely put me on a block list. Probably because I work for Braintree. I don't know. Like, it was funny because. Yeah, basically, like the processor might put you on a list because you filled in your details wrong too often, etc. They might have you on some kind of strange list. But yeah, generally, it's just a no. But again, it depends on like it depends on what you're asking them to validate. If you are asking them to validate everything, like postcode, etc., right, you might get a no simply because you've filled in your current postcode, but you've moved 2 years ago and you don't realize that your credit card company doesn't have the new postcode, right?
Yeah. I haven't seen that, but I trust that it may happen like that. Okay, thank you, Cristiano.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you very much.